Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're doing the biggest dynasty risers and fallers post draft. I think Jaden, you're going to start us off number one.
All right, I gotta go with the first up on the risers list being Adam Randall, running back for the Baltimore Ravens. Now he was drafted in the fifth round, which is a lot better draft capital than I kind of expected him to get. He was honestly my RB 15 pre-draft, which is like pretty decent, but like in a bad class. Obviously, it's not the best. But the word is that the owner, Steve Bisciotti of the Ravens, was extremely high on him. I'm not sure if you guys saw that video of him actually calling him up himself, making that draft pick. The Ravens GM just let him have his own pick, and that was ended up being the pick. So he's probably gonna have some leeway for some mistakes because the owner of the Ravens absolutely loves this guy. He's a massive human. He's 6'3" as a running back, 232 pounds, which is just insane. It's like kind of Derrick Henry level-esque, which is kind of probably why he wanted to be drafted to be that heir apparent to Derrick Henry in the first place. He kind of reminds me of Cordero Patterson a bit, just because he spent 3 years as a wide receiver at Clemson before moving to running back last season. This guy's a freak athlete. He had a 4.5 40 elite lower body explosion, 13 touchdowns on just over 200 touches in 2025. And he also is a pretty good kick returner too, so he has some leeway there. And then for a guy new to the position, it's kind of shocking how good his natural vision is as well. Obviously, there are some red flags, which is why he went down to the fifth round in a bad class. He's never had more than 172 carries in a single season, so he doesn't have that Derrick Henry type of prospect level of workload. Like Derrick Henry had like 350 carries in his last season at Alabama, so this guy doesn't really compare to Derrick Henry too much. Maybe he can be like a Derrick Henry light at best. I think that's a lot of wishful thinking. Also, he wasn't amazing in terms of, forced missed tackles. It was near the bottom of the class as well, which is what Henry thrives on. There's also some durability concerns with his massive frame. I just think this guy's the ultimate traits over tape gamble. I think this guy in the third round, he's a decent gamble, especially if you have Derrick Henry and you really want to have that succession plan on your dynasty team. He would be a good, decent like stash in terms of the late third round, maybe a taxi squad stash as well. He's a very high upside type of project dynasty player. I think if you can get him with your fab after the draft, especially if you have Henry, it would be a good move.
Yeah, I absolutely love the Ravens owner. The way he's been handling this offseason has been super cool. I've never heard of an owner getting a draft pick. Usually you'd say, like, oh, I mean, that kind of sucks. But to give an owner a late day three pick on a guy like this, who's got like huge boomer bust potential, who he believes in, I think it's pretty cool. And like you said, he's probably going to get a bigger chance than any kind of day three
Yeah.
guy in this draft
Yeah.
with the owner vouching for him. So I think that's really cool.
And he has that kick returner ability, so that'll probably keep him on the roster at least. Like he's not going to be a training camp cut candidate by any means. He'll definitely make the roster just because of that special teams ability.
Next up, we got Chris Bell. This is a guy who a lot of people had going in the second round, somewhat early second round. He ended up falling to the third, pick 94 to the Dolphins. I think that is an absolutely amazing landing spot for him. So he should almost immediately step in and maybe be the number one wide receiver. Although he's not a traditional X, I don't see him playing a ton as that dominant X on the outside. I see him rotating as kind of a big slot Z. I think this is the perfect situation for him also with the new head coach and quarterback, Jeff Hafley. We saw in Green Bay he loves to run those short over the middle routes, a lot of RPO, a lot of quick stuff with Jordan Love to set up the deep passing game, especially with Malik Willis stepping in. He's going to be looking for a lot of that quick passes, generated targets, manufactured targets, stuff to get the ball in his hand and utilize Chris Bell's yak. He's awesome in space, runs a 4.4. He's super, super great at breaking tackles. That's like almost his entire game. I don't see him moving out to the outside a ton. And he doesn't have the most incredible hands, not a contested catch guy, but not necessarily a huge drop problem. He's only 21. He did break out a little bit later in his college career, had 900 yards last year. Somewhat reminds me of Xavier Legette, but he's much younger than Xavier Legette. So the fact that he got to this point in his profile, I think that he's got a lot higher of a ceiling than him while having a similar kind of yak player profile. I know we've seen a lot of these players kind of fail over the past couple of years, and that kind of really scares a lot of people for right reasons. Manufactured target receivers oftentimes do fail in the NFL because they need a coach to believe in them. They need a scheme built around them. Good news for Chris Bell is this is the best chance maybe any wide receiver drafted in the third round is going to receive. And he's got maybe the best situation of any receiver in the class to be in this scheme that's looking for a yak slot and a scheme that desperate for a wide receiver, no target competition. I see Chris Bell being a very, very good rookie. Nice stash on your dynasty team.
Yeah, I think we couldn't have asked for a better landing spot than the Dolphins because that room is just completely wide open. He could easily be the wide receiver one, like year one, and I wouldn't be shocked. Like it's to be seen if he's healthy enough to like start week one. Because there's a lot of talk of maybe him missing the first half of the season because he's
He's
coming
the
off that
latest.
torn ACL. Yeah, but I mean, I'm hearing that he's probably gonna start week one, so. That'll be good for his dynasty prospect profile. I think that if you can get him third round, late second, probably late second, you probably have to scoop him up.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen him go higher than late second, but I think late second's a good spot for him for sure.
I saw him projected, honestly, early to mid second before the
Oh,
draft in
yeah,
dynasty
yeah, yeah.
mocks.
Yeah.
And now with the draft capital, he's lowered, but great situation. I would absolutely buy low on this guy.
Kind of makes no sense how like his draft capital went lower despite him having an amazing landing spot. But next up, one of the biggest risers on my board, I think anyone's board, is another Dolphins receiver, Caleb Douglas. This guy was a shocker. Like everybody kind of never expected him to go third round. Never expected him to even go like round five, to be honest. Like it was almost a shocker, like a stribling to the 49ers early second as well. But third round draft capital, Miami clearly loves this guy. He's 6'4", 206 pounds, 4.39 40, which is just shows you how athletic this guy is and just how much potential he has to be that big X receiver. That they're going to be looking for in a wide open Dolphins wide receiver room. He has a legitimate opportunity to be a day one starter on that team on the outside. And he's also a very fascinating deep threat. He posted a 13.8 ADOT. He led Texas Tech with back-to-back 800-yard seasons. He was kind of an underrated prospect, but he's very elite at tracking the deep ball as well. Pretty good in contested catch situations, which is exactly what you want from a vertical, X receiver. Plus, he was a QB in high school, so he has still a little bit of raw potential at the wide receiver position, and great zone IQ as well. He knows where to find the holes in zone. But he does have some red flags just because, he was projected as kind of that low end wide receiver prospect this year. He has below the 2 yards per run threshold, which means he probably won't work out in the NFL. Has those drop issues as well, 11.7% drop rate. His hands definitely run hot and cold at times. And he's not as fast on tape as his 4.39 speed would suggest, which is not great. But I think if you can treat him as kind of that boomer bust third round rookie pick, I think since he has that really good draft capital, he has the path to immediate snaps in that wide open receiver room. I think that you do it for the ceiling, you take the ceiling potential, and don't be afraid to flip him for a more consistent veteran. If he has a few solid early season games, and if you're a contending roster in Dynasty.
Next up, we got Eli Raridon out of Notre Dame, getting picked by the Patriots in the third round. It was no secret that Mike Vrabel and the Patriots were looking for a tight end prospect, looking all over, especially after losing Austin Hooper. Hunter Henry is always a huge injury risk, especially now that he's getting up there, looking for a new target. Raridon, huge potential tight end prospect. A lot of people love this guy. He's 6'7", runs a 4.6, athletic beast, great, like a really high catch rate and a great blocker. So really solid all around tight end. Problem is he did have 2 ACL tears within a 10-month period. He caught 0 touchdowns this year. So he has his warts certainly, and he didn't have those high receiving yards or eye-popping stats, much like any Notre Dame
Yeah.
wideout or pass catcher this year. They really ran through the run game. But regardless, Raridon does need a lot of development when it comes to being a very complete pass catcher, but he certainly does have the explosiveness, over 2 yards per route run, which is really great for a tight end. And I think the Patriots are going to be looking a lot for him in 2026 and beyond. I think he's a really boomer bust, high floor, low ceiling, especially with those injuries. No one really knows what he's going to be. Bit of a Pat Freiermuth comp, which is awesome. I think he's going to be a red zone weapon for the Patriots. Josh McDaniels love to throw those high fades to big tight ends in the red zone. So hoping to see some of that out of him. Definitely. I think there's a lot of opportunity with him for the Hunter Henry thing, and his very, very high ceiling. I just think it's very boomer bust. He's got great hands. He's fast. He can block, but the injury risk and a bit of that route running is where we're going to look to improve for Raridon. So a really, really good, I think probably round 3, I would say, like early round 3, potentially, maybe late round 3,
Mm.
where you're going to be looking for him in your
Probably
drafts.
early, I would say.
Yeah, and I would say late round tight ends I find often are much better investments than wide receivers because you're often getting second, third round tight ends
Yeah.
that's really good draft capital for a tight end. You're probably getting the tight end 3, 4 off the board, whereas you're getting the wide receiver 8, 9, 10, 11 at that point. Raridon's going to be a much better investment than what's going to be around him later in the drafts, especially with his high ceiling.
Yeah, I think kind of the same thing with Oscar Delp as well. Like I think he's another guy in kind of like similar to a Raridon where it's like they had really great draft capital. They have high potential as a receiving tight end. And I think that you should definitely take the upside shot on those guys, especially if you need a tight end. I think it's a really, really deep class for tight
Yep.
end this year in Dynasty. And Raridon is a guy that I really compare to if anybody's going to be the next George Kittle in this class, it's going to be Raridon. I thought that before the draft capital we saw, before the landing spot, and it's obvious that, Hunter Henry's getting up there in age.
Yep.
He's probably not going to be around for much longer, and Raridon is most likely going to be the next heir to Hunter Henry. He was also kind of similar as a prospect to George Kittle. Like Notre Dame, they really ran through the run game, and he was trusted to be a blocker instead of a receiver. But he does, when he's given the opportunity, he is a good receiver. Like he doesn't drop many passes. He's explosive in the pass game. This guy has a really high contested catch rate as well. And just, athletic as all get up. And I really, really like him. I think if you can get him in the third round, I think that would be a fantastic pick for your dynasty roster. Next, let's look at a guy who's falling for most people. I know he didn't have the draft capital we all expected, Elijah Sarratt. He ended up going to the Baltimore Ravens in the fourth round. I've called him kind of a worse Michael Pittman type of comparison, and honestly, I think that's probably the best comparison you can give for him. He's really the definition of that high floor, low ceiling possession type of guy, and his analytics were really good. Arguably the most productive receiver in the entire class, led the Big Ten in receiving touchdowns as well on, that championship winning roster. I think that he does have his warts, like he's not going to be, high ceiling guy, like especially those types of guys that you want to look for in your third round of rookie drafts. But if you really are looking for that floor type of receiver who's going to have a chance to compete in kind of a wide receiver or sorry, a wide open room opposite Zay Flowers. I think that he's a really good option for you if you're looking for that safe floor. Don't expect him to be that league winner type of guy, but his only competition is going to be that Jacoby Lane, who I think he's honestly a better prospect than. And Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, they have roles that are cut up as well, but Mark Andrews is obviously getting up there in age too. I just think that Surratt has very, very high potential to be the wide receiver too, kind of like I guess you could say like DeAndre Hopkins, like older, kind of similar Ravens type of DeAndre Hopkins comparison, who earns probably more targets than DeAndre Hopkins was. But I honestly think that he can be the wide receiver two of the Ravens. And if you're looking for a high floor, definitely target him, late second, early third of your dynasty draft.
All right, my first follow here, we're going with Jonah Coleman. I have no idea how he fell to the fourth round. We were looking at mock drafts like early before the draft, and a lot of had him going in the early fifth, and we were like absolutely laughing at that. And it's kind of funny that it almost became a reality, considering that I haven't seen him lower than RB5 on anyone's boards, and he's almost like the consensus RB3, especially the way he played at Washington. He was very, very productive. Now he's not going to wow you with speed or anything like that or run off tackle, but between the tackles, red zone carries. He's 5'9", 225. He's built like an absolute tree stump, 36 college touchdowns, over 5 yards per carry throughout his entire career. He's a very fantastic power back. He's a polished player, great in pass pro. Everyone loves the guy. He's an energizer bunny out there. People in the locker room love him. I really don't know how he fell below guys like Kalen Black. Genuinely, the 49ers would love a guy like Jonah Coleman. They have been reaching on running backs for years now. So often we see NFL GMs go for intangibles and all these things. How fast is the guy? How long are his arms? Jonah Coleman is much better at football than a plethora of running backs that got drafted before and just after him, just because he's not very fast at all. He did not a home run hitter at all. He doesn't have any rushes over 40 yards. He's not going to run off tackle. That's not what he's meant to be. He's still a guy who can be out there for a lot of downs. He's still a guy who can get over 20 carries a game because he's going to be getting carries to the red zone. He's going to be out there on pass pros that can be audibled into runs. He's going to be in there for those tough runs up the middle that you need on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, things of that nature. While that does limit his ceiling to a certain extent, he's not going to be set up for those huge runs. I still see him getting a lot more volume in the NFL than the certain guys that were drafted to be those kind of speed, screen guys, home run hitters. I think Jonah Coleman is a very safe pick, lower ceiling, very, very high floor. Maurice Jones-Drew, I would say, is his absolute peak, and maybe like a Zach Moss kind of floor. But I could see him being honestly kind of like a LeGarrette Blount light. And if he's
Yeah.
put in the right situation, I think he could be a fantastic player. So stealing him in the late to probably early 3rd round range, I think would be an awesome selection considering he was projected as the 201 in most dynasty mocks before the draft happened, and he fell out of what was supposed to be the late 2nd, early 3rd. So I think Jonah Coleman is going to be a fantastic steal for anyone who picks him. Just because they're followers doesn't mean I think stay away from him. I think buying low and getting some of these guys who fell down the draft board based on intangibles is a lot better than guys who are low on the draft board because they aren't very productive or good at football. So Jonah Coleman's a guy to watch. Loved him pre-draft, still love him now. Still my RB3.
Yeah, and I think that the Broncos is not the best landing spot, but like maybe next year or maybe even as early as this year, like if Dobbins gets hurt again, if Dobbins like leaves in free agency after this season, I think that he can take over that Dobbins role. He can be kind of that round or sorry, the down one, down two type of running back, and then like the down three will be kind of that RJ Harvey role, like he'll be the third down running back, and kind of that maybe. I think Jonah Coleman will probably take over the red zone duties as well in that offense. So he definitely has a really high floor for Dynasty.
Love it.
I've seen a lot of, other Dynasty YouTubers rank him early round two still in drafts. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's fallen that much, maybe just a bit, just because of the landing spot and the draft capital is not the best. You really want to see like top, round 1 to 3 draft capital, but. I mean, it's a good landing spot. I think Sean Payton loves him.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think he's clearly going to be the thunder to RJ Harvey's lightning in the future. He's still
yeah,
only 22. I do like J.K. Dobbins as a player, and I think it's clear that the coach does trust him. I just don't think he's going to be a guy who stops you from picking this player. Like you're going to be weary picking Mike Washington with Ashton Genty there. I think with J.K. Dobbins being as old as he is on a 1-year deal, as injury prone as he is, I think Jonah Coleman is very clearly the future here. And like you said, could take the role as soon as this year, depending on injury and production. So I think J.K. Dobbins, I don't love the landing spot, but I do think there is a clear path for him. And a guy like that is not going to stop you from drafting Jonah Coleman, in my opinion.
yeah. And your your sell high window is now closed on RJ Harvey.
Yeah, like slam shut. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, next on the followers list, I have wide receiver Chris Brazzell, who I'm honestly going to tell you to avoid right now, rightfully so. I think he is a faller. He was taken in the 3rd round by the Panthers. Still pretty decent draft capital. I think we kind of expected that. And while the height, weight, speed combo is great, it looks great on paper. I think the tape and the situation in Carolina are just massive red flags for me. Analytically, he's the total, kind of vertical only deep threat type of receiver, and the Panthers wide receiver room is very crowded right now. It's got Ted McMillan, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, who was really, really, fantastic in the playoffs last season. I think Brazil's a classic rookie draft trap that people just get caught up on, like the 6'5" frame, the speed. But I think, if you can get him maybe late third, just take a high upside shot on him, maybe. But I think honestly, I would kind of avoid him unless like he's in the 4th round of your draft or he's an undrafted free agent. I just think I would rather let someone else take the headache there and kind of see how that situation unfolds.
Yeah, and I love this guy pre-draft, and even I'm going to tell you to avoid. And I'm a guy who gets myself in trouble ignoring analytics and watching tape and being a Jimmy's and Joe's over X's and O's at times. But I'm telling you, like, I totally agree with you, like, especially with the inability to run routes to the left, like pure deep threat. When you have a guy like Bryce Young, who had, I think 5 games under 200 yards last year,
Yeah.
he does not have a huge arm. He cannot see deep down the field very, very well. Again, this is not a huge hate Bryce Young, but like, I think he's a decent quarterback, but even I think a lot of Panthers fans would acknowledge he doesn't have the best deep accuracy. He
Yeah.
doesn't have a huge arm. He's not the guy that's going to push the ball down the field like that. So what he needs, a guy who's going to take shots down the sideline and a receiver room that doesn't have guys like that already. Like I think Jalen Coker was that guy for them last year and already has that established trust with Bryce Young on the deep passing routes. And you already have a better big body receiver in Tet McMillan on the other side. I don't really see a path to success for him. I do like the draft capital in the third round, and I honestly liked his game a lot. I thought there was a potential path for him to become a big time player if he got in the right situation and was molded. But I just don't see it with the Panthers, with how crowded that receiver room is, how many have been taken in the first round, how like low volume the passing game is. I don't see Bryce Young throwing for 5,000 yards this year, probably around 4K, maybe in a really good
Not
season.
even.
In a
Not
really
even.
good season,
Probably
that's like his absolute
3,500.
season. Yeah, if we're talking realistic, 33 to 3,500. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't see him having a huge season. I don't see that path for him, even though I did like the potential. We have to acknowledge the low floor, and I think we're going to see it in Carolina, unfortunately. Next up, we're going with my boy Denzel Boston. We're going with the Washington boys, and just because they're falling doesn't mean I want you to avoid them. He went early second to the Browns. I know a lot of us were hoping for that late first round draft capital where he went to a contending spot like Kansas City, New England, Buffalo that really needed that deep threat. However, I still do think Cleveland is crying for a passing game, and I think it will improve over time, especially with hopefully the quarterback situation at least becoming better than Dylan Gabriel. They invested a lot in what was probably the worst offensive line in football last year, and they got the new coach in there. I think that there is a path for him, considering that they have over the past 3 years had at least one top 12 pass catcher. So there at least is room in that offense for one wide receiver. I know they did pick Concepcion in the first round. I think he will potentially struggle to get that high volume early in his career, being a guy that goes across the middle, is a punt return guy, a yak guy, a generated targets guy. I don't know how much that's going to go like 100% in a run first offense. I like a receiver a lot more like Denzel Boston. Whether it's Shadur Sanders or Watson, we know both of those guys love to take shots down the field. And we don't care about their interception numbers because we're not running a real football team. We're looking for those touchdowns. And I think that Denzel Boston's going to be a beneficiary of either one of those gunslingers playing. Only 68% of his college passes were deemed catchable. A lot of people said the quarterback play wasn't as bad as it looked. I looked in the film. There was some really bad accuracy issues. And he only had 5 drops attributed to him his entire college career. So I think a lot more of that was on the quarterback than him. He does have under 2 yards per route run. That has never really produced successful NFL wide receivers. But I think a lot of that does have to do with his quarterback play and his role as primarily an X receiver. They brought him in and out a little bit, which I think is a really good thing to do to exploit mismatches. He is a matchup nightmare and absolutely destroys smaller corners. So I think moving him inside the slot, there's a lot of potential there. Although he did get just around over 80% of his usage pure outside. And he's going to, I believe, take over that Cedric Tillman role pretty easily in Cleveland and be more of a pure X. He needs to establish more of a short to intermediate game, but his reception perception was pretty good. His route tree actually looked pretty green everywhere except for the pure streak, and he's not a burner. He didn't run at his pro day, which was a good idea, but it'd probably be somewhere in the 4.5s. I tried watching some comps to him. I think he's got similar to Michael Pittman, Cortland Sutton tape. He's not quite as twitchy as like a DK Metcalf or anything like that. But I thought there's a path for him to be kind of a Rome Odunze, A.J. Brown ceiling. I thought his tape actually compared pretty similarly to both of those guys. Odunze, obviously a much better prospect, but I think that Denzel Boston has a real path to be a premium X receiver if he can establish a bit more of that intermediate route running, if they can move him inside out a little bit, abuse mismatch nightmare, and if he can establish that trust as more of the deep passing game, the big X, the one that Shador or Watson wants to take shots with down the field, I think there is a path for him to get around 800 yards, 8-9 touchdowns in his rookie year, grow from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and debate you just slightly on this one, just because I'm like not the biggest Denzel Boston fan. I don't really love the landing spot as
Yeah,
much as you do. Like before the draft, I thought that he would definitely need more of that, you know, better draft capital. Like I thought a lot of people thought he would go late round one,
yeah,
and he ended up going like almost mid second. So
right.
I don't really love that draft capital. Like we're seeing a lot more that these early round two wide receivers are becoming busts, like a Keon
Yeah,
Coleman, and that's kind of what I expected. That's kind of what I comped Denzel Boston to, kind of like a mid-range comp.
right.
I think maybe at a ceiling you see like Cortland Sutton maybe,
Yeah,
but I really thought he would need kind of immediately a high above average type of passing quarterback to just really help him on some of those throws. But with one of the worst situations at quarterback in the league with Cleveland, and then he's got to compete with targets with Fannin, Jerry Jeudy, Conception now. I don't know, man. I don't see it. Maybe in a few years, you can, maybe break out, become the X receiver. I don't know. Like, it's a bit of a tough situation. Maybe if he's there, like, before the super crazy tier break at the, 111,
Right.
like maybe I take a shot on him at the 110 just due to pure upside. But I don't know. Like, I would try to trade out of the 110, like, if possible, rather than taking Denzel Boston, in my opinion, if you can, like, for decent, like, comp. But yeah, that's what I gotta say on Boston.
I honestly agree with your concerns regarding the landing spot. I just think Denzel Boston is suffering from a lot of prospect fatigue in this way that Ted McMillan was similarly. Like I looked at a lot of mock drafts for 2026 way early. He was projected to be the first receiver off the board in a lot of them. He
Damn.
had similar projection. He had similar yards as a redshirt sophomore. So he was really, really good last year as well. Had honestly similar numbers, only like 50 less yards, a couple less touchdowns. And he didn't show a ton of growth. I think it was a lot due to that quarterback play. And even with in college, a bad quarterback play kind of limiting his production. He was still the number one outside X, and was very productive there. I think he showed a lot of growth in the yards after catch, although he kind of does just take what's given. He returned a punt in one of his last games, and he showed that he can be really, really twitchy. Had a rushing touchdown as a freshman that looked really nice. I just think there's a little bit more untapped potential there, and I'm willing to take a shot on the talent on a guy who was really, really highly touted prospect for a long time, and I feel like even earlier into the season, he was projected to go dynasty in kind of the 105 to 107 range. And I think he didn't really do a lot himself to lower that. I feel like it was just kind of his quarterback play a lot and he didn't run very well. But what he has shown on the field, I believe he can be a Cortland Sutton at the very minimum. That is what I'm expecting from him because Cortland Sutton didn't have the best situation in Denver when he was first drafted, and he still established himself as a premium X receiver. So while I don't think he's going to come out and get 1,000 yards in year one, I think 700, 800 yards, 8 touchdowns is possible, and he'll grow from there and become a really solid receiver.
All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe. We're really building that subscriber count. Hope you guys enjoy the videos, and we'll see you in the next one.